You begin to change your thinking from appearances and how things look and how other people view me. Okay? Because every time you find yourself upset in life about anything that anyone else has said, what you're really saying is what you think of me is more important than what I think of me. All right? So you change from appearances to what I call quality thinking. Quality. What is the quality of my life? Rather than how does it appear to others? Now, do you tell yourself that because my friends don't like me, that means there's something wrong with me? No, that's what you have to learn. That another person's opinion is just that. It's their opinion, and that's all it is. Every time you are upset, or your children are upset, because of what somebody else says about them, including their peers, what you are really saying in that moment, and this is really important, what you're saying is, what you think of me is more important than what I think of myself. And you must never give anybody that kind of power and control over you, because they will always have it. The funny part about approval, for those of you who really want it, now I'm here to tell you that I like approval. I enjoy it. I find it one of the most exciting things in the world. I like it when people read my books. I love it when people applaud. I like it when people tell me nice things and all. I like approval. I'm the first one to admit it. What I don't do is I don't need approval. There's a big difference between wanting approval and needing approval. When you need approval, it means you become immobilized when you don't get it, from making other people's opinions more important. Now, for those of you who say, yeah, but I want approval and I need it, and if I don't get it, and so on, then understand this. The people who get the most approval in life are the ones who care the least about it. And the ones who get the least approval are the ones who are always going after it. So if you want approval in this paradoxical way that I'm talking about it, stop needing it. Stop concerning yourself about it. Ask yourself, who gets the most approval in life? Think of the person that gets the most approval, and you'll see that that person couldn't care less what other people are thinking. They're so busy being, they don't have time to notice what their neighbors are doing. Thoreau said this. He said, if you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. What that means is that success is not something that you can get in life. Success is an inner process. Success is something that you bring to everything you do in your life. It isn't something you get out of what you do. And when you get that, and you learn how to get the junk out, and advance confidently, doing what makes the most amount of sense to you based on your inner signals and the one issue of morality, which is you never interfere with anybody else's right to do the same. Each person has their own right to advance confidently in the direction of their own dreams. And when you violate that, you're violating the principle of the universe, the essence of the universe, which is cooperation and harmony. Then success will begin to chase you. And it will come into your life and arrive in your life in amounts that you never dreamt of before. That you never dreamt of. Things will start happening to you that you would never imagine before. I'm working on a book right now that's going to be called You'll See It When You Believe It. And when you start believing in some of these principles, you'll start seeing things that you were blind to for so long. When you were back here in the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 5, when you were moving away from yourself, as long as you're moving back towards your universal essence, your harmony with yourself, your cooperation with the rest, things will start happening in ways that you never dreamt of. Jung called it synchronicity. And it's a term that we use to explain how unexplainable coincidences sort of happen in our life. And how come these things happen? I'm going to share a couple of those with you before we leave. The quality versus appearance in your life means that you get that inner candle flame working in a way that gives you quality, independent of what other people think of you. Maslow, in defining self-actualizing, no-limit people, said they are independent of the good opinion of other people. of the good opinion of other people, independent of it. They're so busy advancing confidently, doing the things that make sense, and bringing success to changing their baby's diaper, and bringing success to weeding their garden, and bringing it to the job. They bring it on the airplane so that when they run into somebody who is rude to them, a stewardess that is rude, they don't see it as an attack on them. It's just where they are, and they send them love. Help them a little bit, you know. They're kind. When somebody wants to get in on the freeway, and they're one old temptation when they were on the 1 to the 6 side was to say, oh yeah, nobody's getting in front of me. I'm getting there first. It's like they slow down a little bit. They don't have all that type A stuff of having to beat somebody else and having to defeat somebody. It's a new way of being. It's a way of quality where your harmony allows you to cooperate, and you are a part of what this whole thing is about. New way of being, quality rather than appearances. Another new way of being, very important. Living your life on ethics rather than rules. Ethics rather than rules. All these rules, all these ways of having to do things, somebody else dictates to them. Do you know that some of the most immoral acts in the world have been perpetrated in the name of the rules? These are the laws. What do you think Nazi Germany was all about? Everybody doing all these horrible things to other people. I'm only doing my job was the defense we all heard at Nuremberg. I was just doing my job. If it's an immoral rule, it's immoral to obey it. And self-actualizing people, as Maslow tells us, have rules inside of them that they could never obey, never disobey, ever. And they have to do with ethics, how you treat people. How do you think we get to where we are now? You know who Rosa Parks was? The woman in the South, the black woman in the South who said, not today, I'm not going to the back today. No way. I know what the rules are. The rules were all over the place. If you needed a reminder, there were signs every place. Colored in the back, white in the front. And she said, no, I'm sitting here. And that made all the difference. Ethics, not rules. When your children start disobeying rules that need to be disobeyed, don't be surprised. When I was in the service, they had a policy on Guam, where I was stationed, which would not allow the Guamanian civilians to shop in the PXs and the Navy exchanges. But they did allow all other civilians to shop in the Navy exchanges and PXs. But if you were Guamanian, that is, if your skin was dark and your eyes were shaped a little different, then you couldn't. A clear, outright violation. I was a serviceman. I was in the Navy. I was a communications cryptographer. They had a newspaper in the Guam Daily News, and it said, an invitation to speak your mind. And it was a letter writing contest. And they offered $75 to the first prize winner. $75. This was 1961. That was a fortune to me. That was a month's pay in the Navy at that time, almost. So I entered the contest, and I knew I would win it. I had already written a novel at that time. A whole novel I had written while I was on Guam. I knew it wasn't going to be a contest. I felt sorry for the other people entering it. I knew I was going to win this. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that when you're in the service and you have an opinion and you don't submit it to the chain of command, that you can be court-martialed for that. So the headlines on next week's Guam Daily News were, U.S. sailor assails policy of discrimination. Big, hot stuff, all right? And I was called before a vice admiral, Commander Naval Forces Marianas Islands, and threatened with a court-martial because I had disobeyed the rules, even though the rule was immoral. There are lots of them like that. And when I went in and they threatened me with a court-martial, I told them this was my battle plan. They didn't have Xerox machines in those days, so I had to get a lot of carbon paper. I wrote a letter to President John F. Kennedy, and I wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Navy, and I wrote a letter, my hometown was Detroit, I wrote a letter to the Detroit News and a letter to the Detroit Free Press, telling them what was happening to me as a result of just expressing my opinion about an immoral act that was going on over here on Guam. And I showed the naval vice admiral my letters right there. I said, I've only sent the one to the president and the secretary of the Navy. These letters go to the newspapers across the country. There was one there to the New York Times as well, and the Los Angeles Times. It was, and I just spread them out before him. I said, if you court-martial me or punish me in any way for this, then what's going to happen is the world is going to find out about this policy. And I'm prepared. I'm ready. I can handle it. And I was 20 years old at the time, or 21. Not only did I get a blessing from that, because all things come in blessings for you, I got out 90 days early. And they stamped on my record, P.I., because the president took it up and sent it to the secretary. Must have. And I never heard from him, but the P.I. on your record means political influence. And they don't like anybody with political influence in the military. And as soon as they saw that, they said, this is somebody we probably will be giving a discharge real soon. There was no court-martial. And in September of 1962, a brand new policy was initiated on Guam, which allowed any civilian to shop in the Navy exchanges. And it came about as a result of someone saying, these rules are immoral, and therefore it's immoral to obey them. New ways of being, ethics rather than rules. And when your kids want to know why, how come these rules are so stupid? How come we have to do this? Encourage them to change them. My mother always did that. She would have to help me get out of the messes that I got myself into, because I did it in my impetuous youth. I would just, when they would say to me, what's more important, your job or school? I was just honest. I said, my job, of course. That's how I felt in those days. But what you do put out in the world is exactly what's coming back to you. And if you find things coming back to you that you don't like and don't understand, don't ask yourself why these things are coming to you. Ask yourself what you're doing to make them come back to you. And when you start putting the responsibility on yourself, you'll start seeing dramatic changes. Dramatic changes. A new way of being. Instead of rules, ethics. Another new way of being. Instead of looking all your life for achievements and externals, try living your life on knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Knowledge instead of achievement. For the sake of knowledge. Being in a context in which you don't have to collect a lot of merit badges. You don't have to collect a lot of awards and other people's value judgments. That you go to school or you go out into the world or you read or whatever it is you do because it makes sense to you, not because of what somebody else is going to put on a transcript or where you're going to appear in a class list. We need to help our children to understand and value the importance of knowledge for the sake of knowledge and doing things that make sense rather than taking the easy way. Knowledge rather than always trying to achieve. We're in an achievement-oriented society, which tells us that we evaluate and judge a human being based upon how many achievements he has. But most of the people who get caught up in that trap and are always in this circle of trying to get ahead, trying to always get ahead, their reward for that almost always is higher blood pressure, ulcers, early deaths, and even things like cancer, we're beginning to find out, are related to the kinds of stresses that we have. And remember, it's a perfect universe. There's no stress in it. There's only people thinking stressful thoughts. And when you put that pressure on yourself to always achieve and get ahead of the other guy, you miss what it's really all about. There's nothing wrong with goals. It's falling in love with them that's the problem. It's not being able to be flexible and alter them. If you have a goal to get here, to get $100,000 in the bank, to get to this promotion, to get 2 cars in your garage, to whatever it is that your goal is, and you're on your way to that, and you're always working at the goal, all of this stuff on your way to the goal is called striving, and that's what you learn, striving. And striving is a very low-level place to be. When you get to your goal, because all you've ever known is striving, you will just always suffer from this disease called more. You will just upgrade your goal to $200,000, 4 cars, and 2 houses, and another wife, and a younger one, and all of these kinds of things. If you have a goal and you understand that every step along the way is a present moment to enjoy and to live, then the goal won't become any obsession. I don't have any goals in my life. People ask me, where are you going to be 5 years from now? What are you going to be doing? What's next for you? I remember what Lincoln said, who to me was like the greatest person who ever sat in that White House. He said, I never had a policy. He said, I just tried to do what made the greatest amount of sense each and every day of my life as I sat there as the President of the United States. And I think there's something really significant in that you don't have to get it all planned out and follow a certain pattern and do it a certain way. If you just sort of trust your inner instincts and go with that and live each moment, the goal stuff will all take care of itself. But if you're sacrificing and pushing your life aside and suffering on your way to trying to get someplace, you'll never get there. It will always elude you, because once you get there, you'll just have to upgrade it. And that's because that's all you'll know. Nowness is that purest form of sanity, living in this moment and enjoying it. And all the rest of it will sort of work its way out.
Several months ago, my desire to manifest something into my life did not appear to be registering with the God force that brings all things into being. It is not that I was being impatient, for I have come to know in my heart of hearts that all things arrive in divine time, and that it is not the job of my ego to say when what I desire should show up. I've come to fully accept that infinite patience produces immediate effects, as A Course in Miracles tells us. The immediate results are the sense of inner peace that I feel when I trust in the divine, and infinite patience is just another way of saying pure faith. The point I'm making here is that I wasn't experiencing anything remotely close to inner contentment. In fact, the more I focused on what it was that I wished to see fulfilled, the more I felt anxious, sad, worried, frustrated, and even mildly angry at times. It just didn't seem to be working. Then one day I was rereading for the umpteenth time the third volume of the I Am Discourses, the little book that was left at the yoga studio all wrapped up in gold, that influenced the creation of this book that you're listening to. And I came upon something that made me realize why my feelings in my body were so discordant when it came to the fulfillment of one of my greatest wishes. Quote, "The student should constantly look within his human self and see what habits or creations are there that need to be plucked out and disposed of. For only by refusing to any longer allow habits of judging, condemning, and criticizing to exist can he be free. The true activity of the student is only to perfect his own world, and he cannot do it as long as he sees imperfection in the world of another of God's children." Unquote. Reading this paragraph was like having a bucket of cold water thrown in my face to shock me from the coma that had defined my life in relation to the lack of fulfillment of my wishes regarding this particular thing, which I have chosen to keep private. All the while I was using my imagination to have a clear picture of what I wanted, I practiced living from that mental position. I assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I used my subjective attention to keep that vision alive in my inner world. And I always used the last moments of my awake time to go over and over what I wished to manifest before entering my unconscious state of sleep, where my subconscious mind was most at home. During all that time, I was also seeing imperfection in another of God's children. I lovingly criticized, not so lovingly condemned, and my judgments frequently overshadowed my spiritual visualizations and intentions. I had to learn that every single one of God's children is doing what they know how to do, and I need to be able to love them, all of them, as our source of being loves them, without judgment, without condemnation, and without criticism. If I'm to be a being of love living from my highest self, that means that love is all I have inside of me and all that I have to give away. If someone I love chooses to be something other than what my ego would prefer, I must send them the ingredients of my highest self, which is God, and God is love, as I have reiterated over and over throughout the pages of this book. My criticism and condemnation of the thoughts, feelings, and behavior of others, regardless of how right and moral my human self convinces me it is a step away from God realization. And it is God consciousness that allows for my wishes to be fulfilled as long as they are aligned with my source of being. I can come up with a long list of reasons why I should be judgmental and condemnatory toward another of God's children, and why. Damn it, I'm right. Yet, if I want to perfect my own world, and I so want to do so, then I must substitute love for these judgments, or take the consequences of not having my wishes fulfilled. I spent years studying the teachings of Patanjali. And he reminded us several thousand years ago that when we are steadfast, which means that we never slip in our abstention of thoughts of harm directed toward others, then all living creatures cease to feel enmity in our presence. Now, I know that we are all human, you, me, all of us. We do occasionally slip and retreat from our highest self into judgment, criticism, and condemnation. But this is not a rationale for choosing to practice that kind of interaction. I can only tell you that when I finally got it, and I sent only love to another of God's children whom I had been judging and criticizing, I got the immediate result of inner contentment, and my wishes have definitely, assuredly been fulfilled. I urge you to send love in place of those judgments and criticisms to others when you feel they impede your joy and happiness, and hold them in that place of love. Notice that if you stay steadfast, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. The last 5 minutes of your day before you enter into your sleep state are the most important 5 minutes of your day if you're going to begin living a wishes-fulfilled life. In this brief portion of your day, you're going to tell your subconscious mind how you feel and what wishes God, the universal one subconscious mind, is to fulfill upon awakening from your deep slumber. This 5-minute segment of time in your bed, about to enter into your subconscious and marinate for the next 8 hours or so, is the most crucial segment of your entire 24-hour day. You can use this time in one of two ways. Let me explain them both to you, and then you can decide which one you choose to adopt for yourself, keeping in mind that what you impress upon your subconscious mind is what the universal one subconscious mind will offer you in your waking hours. Your subconscious mind is indifferent to what you want or what is best for you. It cannot make a distinction between what you are feeling as a result of all that happens to you throughout your waking hours, or what you feel as a result of what you are imagining for yourself as having already transpired while you are in bed preparing to doze off to sleep. Number 1, choosing to review the day's frustrations and disappointments. As you lie in bed, you can use this time prior to entering your subconscious mind to review everything that transpired throughout the day that caused you to feel unhappy, dejected, frustrated, angry, and so on. You can think sad thoughts about all of the people who disappointed you and review in your imagination via your inner dialogue with yourself how unhappy all of that made you. You can spend these critical moments worrying about all of the things that didn't work out the way you wanted them to, and projecting onto your subconscious mind evidence for things continuing to transpire in the same way that they always have. You can go over the argument you had with others and conclude that these people really do make you unhappy. You can use your mind to relive how fearful you are that things are not going to improve. You can even predict that a great calamity is about to befall you and your family, and there's nothing to be done to stave it off. You can picture in your mind the worst possible outcome concerning your own health or the health of a loved one. You can imagine yourself filing for bankruptcy or not getting the job you desire, or a natural disaster striking you, or you feeling even sicker when you awaken. The potential disasters that you can entertain with your thoughts as you prepare to go to sleep could fill the next 100 or so pages of this book I'm reading. Whatever you opt for, such as these examples of thoughts that make you feel bad, is a choice to send those messages to your subconscious just as you are about to go to sleep. In effect, you are imprinting your subconscious mind with, I am unhappy, I am frustrated, I am pessimistic, I am afraid, and so on. Your subconscious mind, unable to distinguish between what you are telling it through your pre-sleep conditioning ritual and what is actually happening in your everyday world, says to you, okay, I've got it. I got it. Your thoughts are on what you do not want and what you despise, and your feelings in your body bring you worry, fear, anxiety, hate, sadness, and the like. Your subconscious mind responds with no desire to change your conscious waking state because it only reacts to what you place there. So it will proceed to offer you experiences from the universal one subconscious mind that aligns with what you've programmed it to do. If you decide you do not want to go to sleep with the first choice in your consciousness, you can develop a new habit for your habitual mind to latch onto. You do have an alternative. Those last 5 minutes of the day are your 5 minutes, and they're yours alone. Consider the second option, using your last waking moments before sleep, programming your subconscious mind in a new way. And this is the second choice, number 2. Choosing to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. As you lie in bed feeling drowsy and knowing that you're about to go to sleep, where your subconscious mind is most at home, use these final pre-slumber moments to align with your source of being and become a wishes-fulfilled spiritual being. In these pre-sleep moments, you can program your subconscious mind to automatically present you with fulfilled wishes. These last 5 minutes awake, then, are your final pep talk to your subconscious mind. You want to focus on assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled that you've placed into your imagination. Here's what Neville offers on this topic. It may be the most valuable information you've ever received in your life. Quote, "The feeling which comes in response to the question, how would I feel were my wish realized, is the feeling which should monopolize and immobilize your attention as you relax into sleep. You must be in the consciousness of being or having that which you want to be or have done before you drop off to sleep." Unquote. So this is what you must ask yourself as you get closer and closer to dropping off into the unconsciousness of sleep. If my wishes were realized, how would it feel right here, right now in my body? Stay with that thought until you begin to feel your body shift into what that feels like. At first, you will be calling upon your ego, which believes that it is separate from God or the universal source of all. And an inner voice will say, "This is silly. I am sick, I am sore, I am dying, and I am only fooling myself." So simply dismiss these mind viruses and conditioned memes, since you are free to use these 5 minutes in any way that you choose. Repeat a new I am that shifts you to the state of the realized wish. Repeatedly tell yourself that I am God in action, and immediately check in with your body to feel the shift from fear and anxiety to peace, love, and contentment. After a little practice, you will find this repeating I am in your mind begins to impact how you are feeling. Sensations of worry and pain slowly dissolve as you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And it is at this point that you allow yourself to drop off to sleep. Use these precious pre-sleep moments to assume the feeling in your body of whatever wishes you desire as already fulfilled. You could contemplate my favorite quotation from Saint Germain in the I Am Discourses. Quote, "I want so much to have you feel that you are the only authority in this world, or any other. So far as your world is concerned, do not ever fear that the perfecting of your world is going to disfigure anyone else's world, so long as your intent is not to harm anyone. It does not matter what the world about you says, or how much they try to intrude upon you their doubts, their fears, and their limitations. You are the supreme authority in your world, and all you have to do is say, when you are beset by these conditions, I am the mighty magic circle of protection about me that is invincible and repels from me every discordant thought and element which seeks to find entrances or intrude itself. I am the perfection of my world, and it is self-sustained." Unquote.
The belief now that not only am I what I have and what I do, but I also become what other people think of me. So my reputation becomes something really, really important. And young people, we call this peer pressure. We call this the time in a young person's life when what other people think of them is really very important. So we're go around and we're taught, as young people, that it's important to get along, it's important to fit in, it's important that other people like you, it's important for you to realize that if you're not liked by your friends, you're not going to be very happy, you're not going to get the things that you want for yourself in your life. And so now we've taken this little beautiful creature who just showed up from a microscopic dot, and everything was handled for it. And it wasn't doing nothing, it was just being done. And we've imposed 3 really harsh kinds of requirements on this person. Forget all of this. Forget this little bundle of perfection, that was created by God and is a piece of God. And let's set it over here and let's create a new one and make it believe that it has to accomplish, it has to accumulate, and it has to win the approval of other people. Now, what I have learned over the years is that if Someone, I gave a seminar not too long ago, and someone wrote me a letter and said, the seminar did not live up to my expectations, okay, and was sort of complaining about whatever that was. And I got thinking about that, like, how would, there were 1,000 people at the seminar, and how, if I have 1,000 people who come to my seminar, all with expectations, how in the world am I going to deliver a seminar and meet everybody else's expectations out there? How is it possible to do that? You can't focus. You can't go out there in front of an audience. You can't perform. You can't do anything in that focused on whether you're going to be approved of or liked or accepted by all of the people that are out there. One of the things that you discover and you learn is that you have to become independent of the good opinion of other people. And as I told each one of my children as they were growing up, I'm not focused on, whether people like you or don't like you. You can't be responsible for that. In fact, you should forget about your reputation. It's a meaningless construct because it doesn't exist within you. You don't have a reputation that is going to be something that you can hang on to and use wherever you go. If you give a talk to 1,000 people, you got 1,000 reputations. And maybe will they walk out and you'll ask them, what was it about it? Did you like it at all? And you get 1,000 different responses. That's the way the world is. And the greatest political landslide in American history, I think it was Mondale and Reagan. I think that's what it was. It was they said it was just a disaster for Mondale because he lost. 45% of the people voted for Walter Mondale for president. 45%. So when you get half the people plus a few percentage points, you got a landslide. So you're looking for, landslides are half the people plus one or two, and you're doing great, But all the people, everybody that you meet, trying to please everybody out there all the time. So it would seem to me that a person who is focused on who they are, rather than on what other people's expectations are, would be someone who wouldn't at all be concerned about what other people think of them, what their reputation is, and so on.
So you change from appearances to what I call quality thinking. Quality. What is the quality of my life? Rather than how does it appear to others? The quality versus appearance in your life means that you get that inner candle flame working in a way that gives you quality. Maslow, in defining self-actualizing, no-limit people, said they are independent of the good opinion of other people. Of the good opinion of other people. Independent of it. They're so busy advancing confidently, doing the things that make sense, and bringing success to changing their baby's diaper, and bringing success to weeding their garden, and bringing it to the job. They bring it on the airplane so that when they run into somebody who is rude to them, a stewardess that is rude, they don't see it as an attack on them. It's just where they are, and they send them love. Help them a little bit, They're kind to, when somebody wants to get in on the freeway, and they're, one old temptation when they were on the 1 to the 6 side was to say, oh yeah, nobody's getting in front of me, I'm getting there first. It's like, they slow down a little bit. They don't have all that type A stuff of having to beat somebody else and having to defeat somebody. It's a new way of being.
I remember when someone in South Africa, a reporter asked me what I had to give up in order to be able to do what I've done in my life. I thought and thought and thought, and I said the only thing I've ever had to really give up is fitting in. It's feeling like I need to fit in, because it just isn't important to me to fit in or to be seen as someone who goes along.
If you understand this simple premise, that we become what we think about, as it says in the Torah, as it says in the Old Testament, as a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh, so is he. We are the products of our thoughts. If you get that simple little thing that I started out with and that I hammer in every book I've written and every talk I've given, every tapes I've produced, we are the product of our thoughts. And our thoughts are very, very powerful. See, if your thoughts are on what you intend to manifest into your life,
You can't do anything but do that. If your thoughts are on what is missing in your life, how much of your time do you spend focused on or thinking about what's missing in your life? The money that you don't have, the unhappiness the lack of happiness in your relationships that you would like to have, your health and the absence of the kind of health that you would like to have, the purity of your body, the fact that you've let it become overweight or you've let it become addicted to substances or nicotine or coffees, or you're not living the purified life. What is missing? If your thoughts are on what is missing, and what you think about is what expands. And there's something, Hawkins speaks about this brilliantly in The Power versus Force. If your thoughts are on what is missing, what you create is an attractor energy to have the universe respond back to you with whatever it is that you think about. This is how it works. It's the law of attraction. It's a very simple thing. Remember in that observation of Patanjali, he said, when you become inspired, dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive. In other words, there are forces out there, outside of you. There's energy fields outside of you that are capable of joining with you and attracting into your life what you want. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. It's a consciousness in which when you put your thoughts on something, and every one of you have had this experience, the experience of thinking about someone and not being able to get your thought off of that person, and then going to the telephone and picking it up and saying, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How many have had that kind of an experience in your life? As you look around and you think, well, and what do we attribute that to? We attribute that to what? Coincidence, don't we? We just say, well, that's just a coincidence. It's weird. I don't quite understand it. I'd like to be able to harness it, but it's just weird that it happens. But the word coincidence comes from it's a mathematical term. In geometry, two angles that coincide, that's where the word comes from, coincide. Two angles that coincide are two angles that are said to fit together perfectly. That's what an angle that coincides with another angle is. Coincidental angles fit together perfectly. We have taken a term that means something that fits together perfectly, and we have assigned to it something that accidentally just happens to happen. I'd like to suggest to you that synchronicity, that is the ability to put your thoughts on what it is that you intend to create rather than on what is missing, is a way of attracting what is missing into your life. Now, you can continue to either attract what is missing into your life, or you can attract what you would like to intend into your life. It's just a matter of shifting the emphasis. If your thoughts are on, if you talk to other people about what is missing, if you use terms like, with my luck, this probably won't work out. I was changing planes in Dallas, flying from Fort Lauderdale to San Francisco. The woman sitting next to me, we came in, we had about 10 minutes to make our connection. And she stood up and she said, as we were gathering our belongings and everybody was trying to get off the plane, you've all had that experience, and trying to make the connection, she said, with my luck, I won't make my connection. And I thought to myself, why would she have evolved into a person who would project out into the universe, into the world of unlimited energy? Why would she project the idea that with her luck things won't work out? Where did that come from? Why would we have that kind of an energy concept? Because my response back to her was, well, with my luck, I will make my connection. I intend to make my connection. And she said, you can't make a plane that is pulling out stop from pulling out. I said, I absolutely can. Of course I can do that, and I intend to do that. Now, she's still in Dallas. That was like four weeks ago. Trying to get the hell to, her connection to San Francisco.
But when you think about what is missing in your life and you talk to your friends about it and you put your attention and your energy on it in your telephone conversations and you go to sleep thinking about what is missing and you have this kind of an energy system going on for you, you will continue to have what you are thinking about show up in your life. And you'll see more and more and more of missingness continue to show up. You can't think about and put your energy on what is missing unless you want it to keep being that way in your life.
You're never going to get enough. You already are everything. You're everything that you need. Think of it for just a moment. Everything that you need to have total bliss, perfection of your life, you already are. You already have it. You came into this world with nothing. That's how you're going out. And the time that you have here, what you have is your uniqueness, your specialness, and you don't need anything else. Now think on this. If you don't know how to appreciate what you have and where you are in your life, you don't need anything else. Because if you do get something else, you won't know how to appreciate that either. You'll just want more. Or you'll want it to be different. Or you'll want it to be the way it used to be. Or you'll want someone else to be the way you think they should be. Successful people or no-limit people or self-actualizing people or inner-directed people, whatever labels that have been put on them by great thinkers and philosophers and therapists and people that have looked at human beings, these kinds of people are people who always have enough. There are some people, if you invite them over and you say, I'd like you to come over tonight, and I'd like you to stay over if you can, instead of having to drive back. And they'll say, well, can you stay? And I say, well, I don't know if I can stay or not. Well, you could sleep on the cot. Oh, no, I could never sleep on the cot. I can't sleep on cots. I got a sciatica. Don't you know that I have back pain and cots? No, that's out of the question. I couldn't sleep on a cot. And what about breakfast? Well, we don't have any food, but we have some old grapefruit that are in the refrigerator. They have a few spots on them. Oh, no, I could never eat grapefruit. And spots? No, thanks. I can't eat grapefruit spots. I just couldn't do that. And these are people who never have enough. They are not able to be flexible and to change. And there are other people, if you say, would you like to sleep over? We got a place in the sewer. Hey, that'd be great. I can handle that. No problem. I slept there before. It's all right. And all we have is grapefruit. Oh, I love grapefruit. Well, there's got spots on them. Oh, I really like grapefruit spots. Those are terrific. I'll go for those. There are some people who can handle anything, not because their circumstances are different. You see, your circumstances have very little to do with your fulfillment in life. Very little. It's how you're approaching your circumstances. It's your attitude towards your circumstances that make all the difference in the world. And taking what you are and accepting it. Daughter helped me with being bald a long time ago. She said, Dad, you're not really bald. Don't think of yourself that way. She said, you're just about this much taller than your hair. That's all. Just sort of a nice way to look at it, too. I just sort of outgrew my hair, sort of transcended my hair, if you will. All right? No-limit people are human beings who take what they are and accept it. And don't tell themselves that somehow they're deficient because of anything about themselves. This is a very crucial concept for me and for virtually all of us. It's this idea of taking your life in your own hands and being the kind of person that you choose to be, and understanding that everything that comes your way is an opportunity, is a blessing. And it wasn't until I learned how to celebrate virtually everything that came my way that I was able to transcend it. You see, everything that was given to us by God, whatever that is perfect. No one can deny the mountains are perfect and the rivers are perfect and the birds are perfect and the hippopotamuses are perfect and so on. This is just what was given to us. Everything else that you have on our planet, that we have on our planet, comes about as a result of thinking. Thinking. Thought makes it so. All right? This microphone comes about as a result of thinking. Somebody imagines it. Somebody then tells somebody else about it, and it creates it. The dress that you're wearing, this shirt that I'm wearing, the shoes that you have, the stage, these cameras. Everything that you see that wasn't given to us was created by man as a result of the way that we think. The way that we think. So what gets inside of us as a cell comes about as a result of the way that we choose to think in our lives. Very important principle to understand. Because once you get a hold of thinking, and that it creates everything that you have in your life, you can change and make it as absolutely perfect as you want it to be, because thought makes it so. Find joy in every moment that you have in your life, instead of always looking for it. It means that while you are driving along the countryside, and seeing, instead of saying, I'm on my way to this point, that you can open your eyes and see it with new eyes. See the rolling mountains, see the grass, see the deer, see the sky. You can just stop wherever you are in this second, wherever you are, and just look around you, and you can begin to appreciate just your surroundings and your environment. Then you can begin to appreciate the people that are in your life, and even the ones that are negative and you're having the most difficulty with. You can practice a new way of being with them, which is sending them love, sending them flowers, send them books, send them a tape, send them something, and just see what kind of reaction that you get. Super emotional health is just an attitude. An attitude is everything.
At any given moment in your life, you are choosing between two pictures or evaluations of yourself. Your choices include the one offered by your soul or the higher self, which I think of as the voice of God, and the one offered by the ego, or your false idea of yourself. You decide how you view yourself and how you view others as well. Essentially, you accept either ego's picture of yourself and others or that of your higher spiritual self. In every moment of your life, you have the option to choose peace for yourself. The ego wants you in a constant state of agitation to keep you from embracing your higher self. It convinces you that if you are not always on edge, you can't grow. But you must keep in mind that experiencing this inner turmoil is a choice that you have made by allowing your false self to dominate your life. When you make the choice for peace, you are literally allowing God into your life. Learning how to specifically allow the higher part of yourself, rather than your lower identities, to be in control of your life. We all long for the peacefulness of being without turmoil and angst. There is a feeling of an inner glow when we know that we are on course, on our sacred path. So why do we so frequently choose the opposite emotions and thoughts and inner beliefs which agitate our minds and cloud our perceptions and distort our relationships? You need to carefully examine your choices that block your experience of peace, of God. Just knowing that peace is always an alternative is a significant awakening. These tools will help to tame the ego when it demands that you pursue separateness or specialness. Replacing the turmoil that you so often choose is then a simple matter of allowing your higher self to take over in any situation where you are about to allow turmoil to enter. Your ego will push you in the direction of the fight, away from peace. You must be ready to see it as it is about to happen and invite your higher self to send your ego a not wanted right now message. I'm fond of this A Course in Miracles quotation concerning ego replacement. You will not find peace except the peace of God. Accept this fact and save yourself the agony of yet more bitter disappointment, bleak despair and doubt. Seek you no further. There is nothing else for you to find except the peace of God. When you have an absence of peace at any time in your life, know that your ego, the false idea of yourself, is what's really responsible. Keeping in mind that every thought has a physical counterpart, you can see that an ego-produced constant state of tension that comes with proving yourself, hurrying, chattering, worrying, chasing, acquiring, and competing also involves tension in the body. High blood pressure, ulcers, skin disorders, headaches, back pain, and even more serious ailments such as cancer, strokes, and liver disorders are the payoffs for the dominance of the ego.
These disorders manifest because you allow ego to create turmoil to avoid the peace that is found within. This awareness of the ego's program should help as you move toward restraining ego and getting to know your higher self. The ego, that false idea that we all have of ourselves, wants to maintain this persistent state of inner confrontation for some very solid reasons. When you understand your ego, you are much more apt to work at restraining it. When you know why your ego behaves as it does, you will then be able to make the adjustments necessary for your higher self to have a greater influence in your life. Here are some of the most obvious reasons why your ego keeps you in this state of turmoil rather than peace. Most important, your ego has been with you since childhood. It has been nurtured by almost everyone you've ever known. Generations of those nurturers have also been dominated by their egos. Your ego wants to survive. If it can keep you in a state of inner turmoil, it will block you from knowing your spiritual self. From the ego's perspective, God is a huge threat, so it will do all that it can to keep you from experiencing that inner peacefulness where God's voice is so beautifully clear. Your ego does not want you to change. The idea of yourself as self-important and special nourishes ego, keeping it healthy and operating at full strength. Even though ego itself is an illusion, just a false idea that you carry around with you, it behaves as if it really had a life of its own. Your ego will make every effort to convince you that you do not need to change. In fact, if you're asking yourself why you shouldn't feel special, you are listening to it right now. These are the kinds of thoughts that have kept you from making the changes leading to inner peace. The ego thrives on fear. When you are afraid, you are at the mercy of the ego. Fear will drive you to behave in ways that undermine your sacred self. Your higher self tells you that there is nothing to fear, that love is the answer to everything, and that God is what love is all about. Your loving presence assures you that you do not need to feel guilty or fearful, and that if you do, it will subside when you experience inner peace. When you experience love within, you have no guilt and no fear. You know that everything you are experiencing is in order, including your woes, which are your greatest teachers, and the death of your body, which is ordained for all the world of the manifest. You know that death is a reward, not a punishment. Therefore, you have nothing to fear unless you listen to your ego encouraging fear and dismissing God. Your ego wants you to be on the move, looking for more things to consume and more possessions to own. The more you are on the move in your life, the less time you will have for knowing your spiritual base. Ego cheers you on to stay busy, to keep moving, and to avoid the inner quest where your ego faces restraint. Your ego wants you to face outward. It wants you to continue facing the wrong way so that you cannot experience the presence of God in your life. By facing away rather than inward, you ensure the strong presence of your ego forever. The consequences are that you will continually feel the pressure to compare yourself with others, the need to defeat others in order to feel powerful or even worthwhile, to have more and better toys, to accumulate more trophies. All of this facing outward is the work of the ego. When you refuse to listen, it shouts that you must be upset when others get ahead of you, that you are worthless when you lose, that being number one is more important than anything, that to settle for less is to admit to being a loser. All of these beliefs are deeply ingrained within you. It is very difficult for you to even imagine not having them because the work of your ego and the egos of so many others have been working overtime, convincing you that this is the only way to be. Facing outward brings about a sense of inner conflict and agitation that keeps you pursuing the gold stars that the ego offers. These are a few of the more obvious payoffs your ego uses to keep you in a confrontational rather than a peaceful mood. Keep in mind that you can restrain this ego simply by the power of your own will. All it takes is a determination to live by the dictates of your higher self and a willingness to act on that determination rather than succumb to the easier path of the ego. That this intelligence is something that we can all access and create not just what we do in our physical world every day, which is where it all comes from, but we can begin to create miracles for ourselves in our lives. Aldous Huxley, in the Perennial Philosophy, he talked about 3 things that all ages of man and all civilizations since the beginning of time all have had in common about what I'm talking about here this morning. All ages, all civilizations, from the ancient cavemen and their totems to the African traditions,
to the New Guinea traditions, to the European and the Eastern traditions, and the Indian and the Japanese tradition. And these are people and places that have never intersected with each other in a physical way. All of them have had what Huxley called three things they have in common. If you look at the philosophers, the people who have spoken for their people at that time, they've all believed that there is an invisible intelligence beyond the world of the changing. All ages of man, somehow, their most enlightened beings know this. There is an invisible world beyond the world of the changing. Number two, all ages, all civilizations who've never intersected with each other have all believed that that invisible intelligence is a part of every single human being. All ages. That it isn't something that is some people get and some people don't. It excludes no one. And three, all ages of man have known and believed that the purpose of life is to discover God, or to discover whatever it is that you want to call that invisible intelligence that suffuses all form in the universe and allows not only you to take notes and to ice skate after 34 years of being away from them, but it allows the flowers to grow, and it allows the planets to align, and it allows the whole thing to exist. So if you want to call it God or soul or spirit or consciousness or Ralph, it doesn't really make any difference what name you put on it. It is not what you call it. It is in every one of us. We all have it. We couldn't be here without it. See, you will discover, as I discovered when my grandmother died, that when they weighed her just before her death at the age of 94 at Henry Ford Hospital, that she weighed 133 pounds. And then after she died, and there was this package, this container left that they were preparing to embalm. It wasn't my grandmother. It was now just a package. That it weighed 133 pounds as they waited for the death certificate. Powerful metaphor there for me in that moment was that whatever it is that constitutes your very life, it doesn't weigh anything. When life leaves the package that you showed up in, the package weighs the same. So your life is something other than the package. And when you get that, you understand that who you are is really this soul with a body, rather than this body with a soul. Or as I said, and you'll see it when you believe it, you're a human being. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. But the quality of that human experience is dependent upon how able and willing you are to make contact with that invisible intelligence that suffuses you and all form in the universe, that is independent and outside of this physical form that you showed up in. This physical form that you showed up in was all handled for you in a split second. All handled in this infinitesimally tiny speck. In this little speck, when two little drops of human protoplasm collided, everything you needed for your form was handled for you. And you can't even begin to comprehend it. A heart starts beating inside a mother's womb 6 or 7 weeks after conception. And it's a complete and total mystery to everyone in the scientific world, in the medical world, and the only people that even have a grasp on it are the poets. Whatever that something is, that invisibleness that allows you to be, we'll call it awareness. Pure awareness.